Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. I'm Mike Coletta.
And I'm Tyler Osby.
And today we have a little discussion episode. I'm traveling on the road for comedy, and I thought this would be a good time with this new documentary coming out soon, too.
Yeah.
Talk about console wars then versus now, because we're in a new console war. We've been in a new console war, I would say, for a long time. Some people care way more than others. And I thought it would be good to fun to talk about the differences between Nintendo, when we had SNES and Sega Genesis, and then now with Sony versus Microsoft. So you want to just kick it off? Let's just get started. It's kind of like a loose discussion episode, so we can say whatever we want.
Yeah, I've just got kind of a few bullet points that I just wrote down, but I think if we're comparing and contrasting right now, they're way less heated than they were, like from a consumer perspective. I would say, like back in the early 90s with Sega and Nintendo, it was all like it was like they almost wanted kids to be literally fist fighting on the playground, right?
Oh, yeah.
Over this, which is not how it is anymore. Like, we see Xbox is like tweeting at PlayStation, like, hey, saw you just launched your new Spider-Man game. It's really fun. And you're just like, oh, that's really wholesome, Xbox. Thanks.
Yeah,
we're all just gamers here, right? And they have their own ways of going about things, and they're in competition, but like they sort of recognize nowadays that we're all gamers. We're all in this together. But back in the day, man, it was like, yeah, and when I say kids fighting on the playground, I mean kids too, because the demographics for video games were so much younger back then that it was like kids weren't really buying their own console, right? They had to convince their parents to buy them a console, and unless you were extremely lucky, you only had one console if you had a console, right? And so you needed to like justify that to yourself and to your friends that you picked the right one, and so everything else had to be just straight garbage, right? And Nintendo and Sega like stoked that fire a lot too.
Oh yeah,
it was just a different time.
Sega does what Nintendo don't.
Yeah, Nintendo is what Genesis isn't.
Yeah, I think it's like about like Sega was the cool kid console. They were trying to be like, look how cool Sonic is versus Mario. It's for kids, but Sega's for cool people. And it's like that really like, oh, now you're talking about like social standing really, you're bringing it into real life here.
And that's different from today too, because like Xbox and PlayStation, I wouldn't say they're fighting kind of over the same sort of market, right? Like Xbox isn't selling to a specific type of gamer that PlayStation isn't selling to, right? They're like kind of both selling to the same group of people. And so the advertising doesn't change that much, or at least the strategy of like Sega's for cool kids and Nintendo's for whiny babies, right? Like that doesn't happen anymore because they all have the same games anyway, for the most part.
Yeah, totally true. And also, I mean, granted, we are saying it's less hostile than it was. We understand that Twitter is a nightmare and Facebook's a nightmare. Like that's just, I feel like if Twitter and Facebook were around during the Sega and Nintendo console war, it would have been way worse
than
it is now. People wouldn't know how to handle it.
And like, because the demographics skew older now, I mean, kids definitely still play video games, but like, it's not weird to be 30 years old and playing video games now like it was in the 90s. But like, as adults, there's a few things going on. Like, we have more disposable income in general, right? So like, people own more than one console. It's not that weird to own more than one console. And also, adults just don't have time to be constantly justifying their purchases to other adults, right? Like, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. No one cares. Get whatever you want.
Yeah.
You want to get a Steam what is it? Steam box? Was that what they were called?
Yeah, Steam Machine, I think.
That was so short-lived. We got to do an episode on that because that's practically history now at this point. I mean, it was newer, but man, wow. What flew right into the sun.
They didn't back it the way they needed to back it. They just sort of like, the more I see consumer electronics and things like trying to break into markets, the more I'm realizing that like, if you want to break into an already established market, you have to put everything you've got behind it. You can't just like throw it out there and like hope it sticks, because then it won't.
Well, that Steam box, Steam machine, whatever we're calling it, they did the same route that one guy did in the 90s, where he had multiple companies making his machine.
Yeah, the 3DO?
The 3DO, yeah, it's the exact same as the 3DO. And then and Valve was like, we're going to have different companies make the Steam machine or whatever. And it's like, nope, this didn't work before. It's now it's not going to work again. What's happening?
Yeah.
But we digress.
Yeah.
One thing I think that is important to note when we're talking about these console wars too is everything that we got from, like, without the Sega Nintendo console wars, we wouldn't have like competition creating like technological innovation. We wouldn't have the ESRB. We wouldn't have, like you just said, now it's normal now for games to be played by like adults. And that's because those adults that were children during this time have grown up to still play video games. Like that set the groundwork for everything. So while we talk about it as like a divisive time in video games, it's actually probably one of the best things that ever happened to video games. And I think that applies now to what's happening with Sony and Microsoft. Definitely.
Yes, I fully agree with that. I think the wars themselves between like hardware platforms are a little bit less relevant now, just because so many more games are cross-platform. Like back in the day, if you wanted to put your game on a Sega and Nintendo, you basically had to just straight up make it twice, right? Like it was, you just, like, the graphics sometimes had to be completely different. You had to redo all the music. You had to, like, the programming was not compatible in any way. And nowadays, like, an Xbox One and a PlayStation 4 they're basically the same hardware wise. Like, I mean, there's subtle differences, and I'm sure there's an engineer somewhere who will tell me how they're completely different, but they're so similar. And the software that developers use to make games is so much more cross-platform now. Like, you can make a game in Unreal Engine, and like it's a pretty minimal effort to make it work across phones and Xbox and PlayStation and Switch, and you know what I mean? Like you just kind of hit a button and it. I mean, I know it's more complicated than just checking a box and it just works, but like
in some ways it's not. Like, I know with Unity, it's straight up like push a few buttons and now you're on Switch. Yeah. It's like, it's kind of weird how they have it all figured out that way.
Yeah. So all of these consoles have like the same games, especially the ones that are comparable in power, like the Xbox and the PlayStation. They get so many of the same games that the console wars are a little bit less important now. And then it's in the, like, I would say until very recently, it's just all about exclusives. And I mean, it still is, I guess. It's all about exclusives, right? Like, software is what sells hardware. So, yeah.
You know, I still really want to play that Ghost of Tsushima game, but I don't have a PlayStation.
Yeah.
They're making me hurt. They're making me, in my heart, it hurts.
Maybe it'll come to PC. Sony seems to be like testing these waters of like, do we put our games on PC? They're feeling out that strategy still that Microsoft is working right now. That's like, you know, I've said this on this podcast before, and I think people have seen me talk about this on Discord too. But this idea of like, we don't care where you play your games as long as you buy them from us.
Yeah.
So like Microsoft. So like in this current console generation, this is why I think Microsoft is like streets ahead on like the competition, is that like people are going to look at, well, how many Series X consoles sold and how many PlayStation 5 sold in like 4 years. We're going to be talking about that, right? And people will probably see that PlayStation 5 sold more consoles. But I would bet that Microsoft made more money because they sold their games on xCloud and they also sold them on PC. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Microsoft tried to get Game Pass on a PlayStation.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So Microsoft is playing like, oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, the distribution's changing. And I also like that if PC becomes the neutral ground where both of these big corporations decide to dump their stuff, I'm so happy with that. Like, if Sony was finally just like, we're embracing the PC, and then they'll probably make some sort of silly Sony store that you have to go through,
of course.
You know? But I would totally, to play like Uncharted or Ghost of Tsushima or Last of Us on a PC, I will do it. I would pay for it for sure.
Yeah, and like Sony gets that money, right? Like whether you're playing it on their console or not, they get that money. And hardware manufacturers lose money on their consoles usually, at least at the beginning of a generation. Like, so if Microsoft can avoid selling us Series X consoles at a loss while still selling us the games, which is where they make all their money anyway, like that's a win-win for everyone, because I don't want to buy a console and Microsoft doesn't want to sell me a console at a loss. And the reason they do that is because it sort of locks you in, right? When you buy a Microsoft or an Xbox console, now you have to buy Xbox games. And that's less of a thing on PC. So they'll have to actually compete on having the better store, which they don't right now. But I think they could if they wanted to put effort into it.
Oh man, the Xbox app for Microsoft is a
It's a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, it's really on the struggle bus sometimes.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you this. If you had to choose one of the new ones, which one would you get? Like if you had to pick.
Oh, if I had to make a call right now based on what I think the future is going to be.
Yeah, like if you had to pick right now. Oh, I'm putting you on the spot, Tyler.
I know. And
I have a controversial opinion, I think. My answer is a little bit different. I'm excited for it.
I'm okay. I want to clarify a few more things, I guess. Are you asking me to pick an ecosystem, or are you asking me to pick which console to buy tomorrow?
Which console to buy
PlayStation
tomorrow?
5. I buy
Really?
PlayStation 5. Yeah, because all the Xbox games are going to be on PC.
Oh, see, I think I would want to choose the S because I think that is cheap. It's next gen and it plays like the same games and it's cheap. I think it's just cheap to me. It's $300.
Yeah, but you have a PC though, and like Halo's going to be on PC, right? All of the first party Microsoft games are hitting Game Pass and PC day one. So there isn't a huge reason to buy the hardware, I don't think anyway.
No, that's a good point. I guess that's true. You know what I just realized? Maybe I should have framed my question as in which one do you think people will buy?
Oh, yeah.
I think I just think the fact that Xbox is selling this, and granted, PlayStation's going to do a console that has no disk drive, and that's going to be cheaper. Probably like $100 cheaper is what everyone's thinking.
It is, yeah. Is what they said.
Did they come out? Okay.
Yeah, they've announced it.
I still think the S, it's like that's the console for families. That's what we're talking about. Christmas time for your kid,
Yeah.
It's going to be the S because it's $300.
Oh, for sure. And
everything.
A Game Pass subscription for tons, just piles and piles of games. That's where it's at, man.
You can make payments too. You can pay like $25 a month for however I want to say it's like a year, I think, and then you have it. That's great.
Yeah.
I should have framed my question not what we're buying, but what people are buying. I realized that when you said it. Because obviously, I think if I'm being completely honest with myself and having a PC and knowing that Halo Infinite and all those games I want to play on Xbox are coming out on PC, probably would get a PS5 so I could play all that stuff, which would suck though because
I'm
100% locked into Xbox with my friends. Like my college friends all play on Xbox. There was no question they are getting the new Xbox. It was actually, I talked to them about it and it was really funny. I'm like, wow, you guys are like committed, and
it's like 1992.
Yeah, no, it's funny because we played on 360, we played on one, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get an X for sure, probably day of. And I'm like, really? Like now that I play, this is me being slightly PC snob, but now that I have a PC, I'm like, why would I play anything else on any other console? But yeah, I think what with the general population, that Xbox Series S is going to be so good to like families. That's like, and I think that's what Microsoft is doing. So this is actually that kind of leads into what we're talking about. You have a theory. You just said, I think, who you think's going to win the war, and I put that in big quotation marks, has been money making, and that's Microsoft.
Yeah. Yes, I think Microsoft will make more money, more revenue, I should say, because I don't know what profit margins look like if they're constantly reinvesting their money, right? But I think revenue-wise, oh, my voice is cracking. I think revenue-wise, the Xbox brand will make more revenue than the PlayStation brand. That's what I think.
This is going to be so. I'm actually legitimately excited, not to pick a side, but to just see what happens. As far as being a video game fan my whole life and following along with it and being super and watching getting just jumping on board the hype train like every other fanboy on everything, no shame. I am super amped to see where this goes in the future because I know people are really scared about the idea of paying for a Netflix of video games, but I think that's great. I don't have to pay $60 to play a game and then just look at that game on a shelf forever. I know what I'm saying here. I know old man Ryan's mad right now. I know. Okay. I know we're all, you can still collect video games. Collecting video games is great, but there's only I think you got to leave that shelf space for the older stuff, the vintage stuff. And then the new stuff I can just keep on my Xbox. And then if someone comes over, I can turn on my Xbox and be like, look at the library. Ooh, look at that. Scroll through it.
Yep.
But yeah, This is this was just so exciting to me that I wanted to talk about it on an episode. So I hope that's okay, everybody. We're discussing today. So,
one thing we haven't talked about yet. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to apologize for my refrigerator in this hotel room because it's the loudest refrigerator in the history of the world. So I don't, like in the middle of the night, it wakes me up and it sounds like there's a monster in my room and it's terrifying. So apologies if you can hear the fridge, everybody.
I think one thing we haven't talked about yet is Nintendo and where they're at now, because we talked about Sega versus Nintendo. Sega is irrelevant in the console wars conversation anymore. We talked about Xbox and PlayStation, which is kind of what the current war is. What's Nintendo off doing?
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of they're in their own bubble, right?
Yeah.
They made a little bubble around themselves. And they can kind of do whatever they want.
They're irrelevant. They're immune to console wars at this point. Like they have Mario and that whole stable of their first party IP, and they're always doing weird stuff like the Switch or making 2-screen handhelds with like weird 3D stuff, and the Wii U is kind of weird. I love my Wii U. The Switch is definitely like a different, like that's how they differentiate themselves is their hardware, which is so interesting because we were talking about how hardware doesn't matter anymore. It's all about the games. But when it comes to Nintendo, they're on this like integrated hardware software thing where they make the hardware in a way that has very like tangible differences, right? Like the Switch is physically just a different thing from an Xbox or a PlayStation, and then they put their software on that hardware, and they're always making great games. Like there's tons of great games on every console that Nintendo has made, and most of them are made by Nintendo. But
when you got Zelda and Mario, you don't really need to worry. You're in a good spot. I will adamantly say I love that I still get to buy like Switch games. I bought the physical version of the 3D World because I was like, that's going to look good on a shelf, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why. It's like, I'm just like such a Nintendo fanboy. I'm like, Nintendo just always looks good on a shelf to me, no matter what. So,
although I got to say this, the cases they're using for Switch games, how they're all like red with white letters on the side. That's a little boring.
You don't like it?
No.
I think it's weird that I think it's weird that the case is small and then I forget that I open up and the cartridge is tiny.
Yeah.
Like you're just, it's amazing. It's so crazy to think about like cartridges then and now and like how is it even, I guess it's more an SD card than really a cartridge, huh? Technically.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you define cartridge. If you define cartridge as just like a place where chips hold the data of the game that you're going to play, then like it's a cartridge, right?
Yeah. I have a very, you actually brought up a very fun topic that I had like a hypothetical question for. And I know we're a history podcast and we're really jumping into hypotheticals, but do you think, and I heard someone say they think this could happen. I don't know where. I think I had some random podcast I listened to. Someone said that if anyone could jump into the fray of making consoles, it would be Sega again.
Oh, if anyone?
Yeah, like if another company like wanted to get into the console wars, you know, where it's like Sony versus Microsoft, Nintendo, Sweden or Switzerland, which one everyone from World War II? Okay, it's just there. That it would be Sega would jump back in again. And I'm like, well, I think that is so incredibly unlikely. I kind of do think that if Sega went the route of Nintendo, like we're not even talking about multiplats. We're just talking about what goes on our systems, you know, and made a new system that was kind of more Sega focused as like a rebranding thing. Would it sell well? Probably not, but it could be possible, you know? Like, I don't know.
I mean, yeah. Sorry.
Because obviously Apple is the other one that we always think about. But Apple, I think, has gone all in on phones. They're all in on mobile.
I was going to say, if we're talking about who is most likely to be a competitor in this space, hard disagree on Sega. I think that it's not that they don't make good games anymore, but they've sort of run a lot of their beloved franchises into the ground. Like there are more bad Sonic games now than there are good Sonic games, as opposed to Nintendo, who every single Mario game has been at least very good, right? And even if it wasn't your favorite, like you can still be like, this is still a really pretty good game. Like Breath of the Wild, one of the best games ever made. Like in my opinion, like they're still churning out these awesome franchise installments. Sega has run a lot of their franchises into the ground. If they were to put out a console that like this was the only place to play Sonic, like nobody cares.
Yeah, that's the okay. This is what. So when I heard this on this podcast, I forget which one it was. It was one of the like Xbox IGN podcasts. It might be the. I don't even know though. I don't want to like say who it is if it's not them. But it was someone on there talking about it, and I was like, how would they? Because what other titles do they have other than Sonic? I can't remember.
We got
honestly can't remember.
Space Channel 5 and Altered Beast. Like they have sort of a stable of IP that they love, and there's some other stuff that they've done that they like publish now too that maybe counts. But
in other news, I think it would be really cool if they like had a redone Altered Beast that would just be for those like 1,000 people that really liked this game.
Didn't they do kind of a remake of it, kind of sort of recently, like in the past decade?
I think they tried to do that. Or was that Killer Instinct?
They definitely did Killer Instinct. Well, that's rare.
I get Killer Instinct and Altered Beast confused a lot, even though they're very different, and I just don't know why. It's just in my head. I don't know why I put them all together.
Yeah. Killer Instinct did get a remake on Xbox. Like, people still play it. I think it's like free to play, too.
Oh. Kind of like Streets of Rage being like redone as in that, and then everyone loved that. But yeah, I don't know if Apple would come out with a console, but I definitely think Apple could do like, well, they have the Apple Arcade thing, right?
Yeah.
So it would kind of be like, that's essentially the Game Pass for Apple.
I have a gigantic smile on my face because I have been talking about this for almost a decade about Apple getting into the console space. You say they have not put out a console? That is wrong, because the Apple TV plays games right now. If you ever played a game called, you can sync up an Xbox controller to it. It has Apple Arcade subscription, which is full of games that are not mobile garbage. Like they're not allowed to have microtransactions on Apple Arcade.
Whoa.
And so like, and the hardware is pretty good. I mean, it's not like Xbox, PlayStation level yet, though rumors are new Apple TV will be much more powerful and stuff. But that they could do that. Like, Apple is the company that could get into the hardware and like ecosystem business, because they already have a big ecosystem of phones and iPads and Macs and all of the stuff that sort of all works together. And Apple TV is part of that. But they make their own hardware now. They make all their own hardware now. And they sell a subscription similar to Game Pass, like $5 a month for Apple Arcade, which doesn't have any super compelling games yet. There's a lot of cool indie stuff on there that's very fun. But I don't know if there isn't any like AAA like Assassin's Creed here. You know, this is Call of Duty for the thing. But Apple has the cash to buy a studio or several studios, like the way that Microsoft spent $7.5 billion on ZeniMax to get Bethesda and id and all those.
Which was definitely, I think, a big reason we wanted to do this episode. Like, why it was in my mind, because I'm like, this is heating up. You know, it's getting real now.
Apple could do something like that. Like $7.5 billion to Apple is chump change, right? They've got like $400 billion just sitting in the bank doing literally nothing. Like they can do whatever they want. And so that's what they don't have right now, is the compelling software, but they're just one $10 billion purchase away from having tons of compelling software, I think.
Just $10 billion. Just an easy peasy $10 billion. You know, not a big deal.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes to get into the console market. So I think, we'll see the new Apple TV when that comes out. That'll be a pretty high-end machine probably. And we'll all be thinking, wow, you really need this to watch movies on your TV? No, you need to play games. And all of those games are already going to be cross-platform across all of their devices. You'll be able to pick up and play your game on your phone, on your iPad, on your Mac. You can already do that with some games. Apple Arcade has this the best like example of like a AAA game that I can point to on Apple Arcade is Oceanhorn 2, just kind of a Zelda clone. It's fun.
Oh yeah, we've talked about that, you and I. Yeah, not on the podcast, but I need to pick that up still. That sounds fun.
Yeah. It's like fully 3D. It's part of the $5 subscription. It's a Zelda game with some cool RPG stuff in there, but you can play it on your Apple TV with your Xbox, your PlayStation controller, and then you put it away. And when you pull out the game on your phone, you pick up right where you left off. And it's not like streaming to your phone, right? It's like actually playing on your phone, and then you move to your iPad. I don't know if Mac is in on that yet, but their new Macs that run on their new Apple Silicon processors will run iPad games. So that will happen too. So yeah, I think Apple's the one that could get in there, and I think they're setting themselves up to. Like, one day we're gonna wake up one morning, we're gonna see Apple has bought freaking Halo or something, not Halo probably, but like something that large, and then they'll be like, yep, and the next one is gonna be on Apple devices, and it's going to be on the TV and the phone and the iPad, and it's going to be such a big game that we're all going to go, oh shoot, well that's cool. I already have an iPhone, right? I can play this awesome game. Maybe I'll buy an Apple TV now so I can play it on my TV, which they're like $150, which is not a lot. Which is a lot for a box that plays movies on your TV, but is not a lot for a console, right? And so, yeah, I think they're gonna like dark horse their way into this generation. That's my prediction.
That's a good
Apple,
prediction. That's a way better prediction than Sega coming back, I think. When I heard that, I was like, I want to ask Tyler about this, and I'm going to go in optimistically, but I'm pretty sure there's no way this is ever going to happen.
No, Sega doesn't. They don't have the games, and like, unless they come up with some really cool, compelling hardware thing the way Nintendo did with the Switch, right? Like, oh, taking these console quality games portable was like a pretty compelling hardware thing to do, right?
They're gonna bring back the Power Glove, but it's gonna be called like the Genesis Gauntlet, and you're gonna wear it, and then you're gonna be able to like, you have to run in place as Sonic the Hedgehog. And that's how you're gonna do it. You know, it's only Sonic. It's all Sonic games.
Yeah.
Didn't Sega like? They kind of have a deal with Nintendo, though, because they did the Sonic and Mario Olympic games that were pretty popular and fun, if I recall correctly. People enjoyed those.
Yeah, I think Sega does, like, they make a lot more money off of just being a third-party developer and publisher. I don't see what they have to gain from being a hardware manufacturer. I don't think they have the money, and I'm kind of making this up. I don't know how much money Sega has, but I'm assuming they don't have the money to really break into this market. So they would need money to first develop that compelling hardware option and not just give us a AMD powered like PlayStation 5 again, but it's called Sega, right? They would have to develop something uniquely compelling in the way of the Switch. So I don't know if that's like VR or something. I don't know.
Genesis Gauntlet.
Genesis Gauntlet. Yeah. They would have to develop the Genesis Gauntlet, which is not cheap to do, right? And then they have to be able to market that thing and like get it into stores and manufacture it. And I just don't think they're big enough to do that in a way that would make them be actual competition for Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft these days.
Okay.
And they don't have the software to sell it, even if they could get that in there. Like, a new Sonic game is not exciting.
No, it's not.
Most of the Sonic games have been bad. Even if it's the best Sonic game ever made, like, that's what it's going to take. And even then, it's like, it's still not that exciting.
I feel like the Sonic was the prequel to this whole speedrunning like community, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Sonic was like, it's fast, you get through the level as fast as you can, and now we have games that do that just so much better in more exciting ways, you know, like Dead Cell speed runs. Like, you're not running like Sonic, but it feels very like the same kind of mood, I guess is how I would put it, you know, as far as trying to get through the level as fast as possible. It's so I definitely agree that the software is just not there for Sega. But I was thinking about this. What studio would you want Apple to purchase?
Oh, what studio would I want Apple to purchase?
So
that's a good question.
The hard part is knowing which studios aren't already purchased by other bigger companies. That's the hard part, because there were talks that Microsoft originally was going to buy WB, like in their interactive entertainment. That was like the rumor before it was Bethesda and ZeniMax. But I was wondering, what if, because this would like kind of work perfectly as far as like being on an Apple TV and something you would sit down and play that doesn't really like super demanding, but would be really fun. What if you had those old Final Fantasies on an Apple TV? Because they could run on Apple TV.
Yeah.
Like,
they're already on iPhone.
Yeah, they're already on iPhones.
That's a Square thing. They could do that tomorrow.
But is Square Enix, is that like an independent company?
Square could literally do it tomorrow if they wanted to. Like, there's nothing stopping them. Like, Apple doesn't need to be bought. Yeah.
That would be like the games that I would want to see, just to jump on my couch and just pull up a controller and just play like Final Fantasy VIII and just be like, oh, I can finally beat it by not leveling up at all and just getting through it.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to do that.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question.
Putting you on the spot. This is not in our notes. This is just straight up off the dome.
Buying a company like Square Enix for Apple would get them something like Final Fantasy 16, right? Like, if we're talking about like new games, they need something new. Like, they can't just buy an old. Like,
I just think they could be like
company for their backlog.
Apple could be like, we've purchased Square Enix. Here are all the old Final Fantasy games on Apple TV, and the new one will be exclusive to Apple TV.
Yeah.
Which would make all of us really mad, but also at the same time, it would be really cool for them.
Yeah.
Because I think we're finally all in the impression that every Final Fantasy should be multi-platform. Like we all want that,
Yeah.
But
I agree. Oh man. Okay. So, and Apple has the cash to do something absolutely
they could buy
bonkers
someone.
like this.
Yeah, they could buy someone ridiculous because they have so much money.
They could probably, and this is off the top of my head. Maybe I have no idea how money works, and how company valuations work. They could buy EA or Activision.
Whoa. Yeah. What if you had Call of Duty just on?
Yeah.
As like on your Apple TV? That would be bananas.
Yeah. They could do it.
Oh man.
Call of Duty Mobile already exists on iPhone and iPad, and if it's on there, it's like a checkbox to get it on Apple TV, I mean, it's not that easy, but it's basically that easy.
Dude, this went from a history discussion of the new world and the old world of consoles to a Marvel's what if of who could be the next one.
Yeah,
that's great.
I think we'll see something like that. I don't know if we'll see EA or Activision, but we'll see like a really, really large developer and publisher get purchased, I think, by Apple. If what I think is true and that they're starting to get serious about gaming, I think we'll see them do something like that. And then those games will be like exclusive to their devices. And it'll be a very compelling hardware argument because it'll be so easy to switch your game from your TV to your phone to your tablet to your laptop to whatever, right? Like that's the value proposition I think that Apple can bring to the table in a way that no other game can. Like Microsoft can't really do that. It kind of can. Sony definitely can't promise that, right? Nintendo, they're off in their own world. They do whatever they want. But Apple can offer that, like, play your game anywhere you are, and not through like a streaming thing. That's what Microsoft is trying to do right now. Is they're like, play your game on your phone through xCloud, right? And it's like, I still remain unconvinced of the whole game streaming thing
because internet infrastructure isn't really there yet for most people to make that work. That just doesn't. That's not possible right now with how people's networks are. So, I think so. Pretty much the way we're definitely like, I'm pretty excited for this Console Wars documentary on CBS All Access. And I'm pretty sure you are too, Tyler, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I read that book. I love that book.
So I think we kind of did this as like the prequel discussion, but I feel like we'll definitely have some sort of episode just where we kind of like book club, but TV show club the whole documentary. Is it a movie or is it a TV show?
It's a movie, like a single shot.
Oh, nice.
We could book club the book too, because the book is not very long. It's not like this Masters of Doom book that's going to take us like 10 years to get through.
Yeah. So, but I like doing these where we do a Masters of Doom and then we break it off with something the other week. I think it's kind of fun. So, and it's just been a fun experience. But I'm glad we got to talk about this. Do you have any other thoughts before we move on to what you've been playing?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, that's my bold prediction is that Apple gets into the biz in a real way this generation.
You heard it here first, folks. Bold prediction. Yep. Tyler. Putting the Tyler stamp on it of approval.
Yep. I don't think they win in terms of revenue. I don't think they make the most money yet.
But you think they just jump in, like kind of like silently jump in, and then they're making money and not really talking about it, not really jumping into the whole like new console thing, but just like we're there and it's fun and we have games, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
All right. So what you been playing this week, Tyler?
This week, boy, I haven't been playing a lot of games actually. I'm trying to think of like where my time has been spent. I've been watching a lot of TV. We binge watched all of The Boys, or what is out of The Boys on Amazon Prime. That's a great show. Not for kids. Don't watch it with your kids.
Still need to watch that.
Yeah, it's great. And that's pretty much it. Oh, we started watching Succession again because I just love that show. Also,
I still haven't watched it. Yeah, that's so many non-kid appropriate shows on this family-friendly podcast.
It fills the hole in my heart that Game of Thrones used to fill with this like political intrigue and backstabbing and like scheming happening. Everybody scheming behind each other's backs, right?
But now it's gone corporate.
Yeah, Succession does that without all of the world building and the massive fantasy stuff that Game of Thrones had, which I also love. But
there are dragons, right? In Succession, are there dragons?
Succession does have a few dragons. Yeah.
Nice. Good to know. Good to know.
What have you been playing?
So my Ring Fit Adventure came in the mail
Ooh.
like right as we recorded last week, and I didn't have time to play it, but I got to play it a little bit before I left on this trip, and I wanted to bring it with me, and that's the only problem right now is it makes a lot of noise. Like you're jogging in place, so you're really like you're creaking your floorboards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're really working at it. So I didn't want to bring it to this hotel, which is good because I'm on the 4th floor, and that would not be fun for the person right below me. But overall, I think it's really cool what they've done. So it's essentially Final Fantasy, I'll just say that, with a very basic story where you find a fit, like a Pilates ring, like the kind that you're holding in the game, and in real life, the controller, and then there's a dragon inside of it that's like just super swole, just really working out hard all the time, loves push-ups. And he was put in the ring by the ring itself, named Ring, because, you know, naming conventions are not a very big strong suit in this. And they're like holding him captive, and you accidentally let him out. And then the ring and you have to like team up and beat the dragon with the power of fitness. Is how
All right.
But it's actually kind of cool what they've done. And I haven't really gotten there yet. I've only been played like maybe like 20, 30 minutes of the game before I had to leave. But essentially, you have different exercises, and they're all color-coded, and there are different enemies, so certain exercises are more effective on other enemies. So it kind of adds that Pokemon-style, like, weakness, strong attacks.
Oh, like a rock, paper, scissors kind of thing. And it keeps you doing different exercises,
Exactly.
which is
So,
probably good.
like, and it worked me out, man. Like, I was sweating and, like, breathing hard, and the cool thing is you can check your pulse using the infrared sensor on the Joy-Con on the wheel. So like every time you get done, it actually checks your heart rate and like records it for you and lets you know like how you've been doing. When you start, you do dynamic stretching, and then you do the little like levels and stuff where you pretty much jog in place to run through. Your like ring shoots air or vacuums up stuff. And then when you're done, you do like static stretching with the ring on the ground, and then you're just doing it next to it and you're just following along. So it's like kind of like a really cool way to essentially work out without having to go to a gym. So like I've paid $80 for it, and I'm going to use it a lot. And essentially it's like a gym membership that you just pay one time. And then when I beat the game, you can still play because there's a bunch of mini games and stuff to do too. So it definitely is not like, I think it's for getting you into fitness again, but it does a really good job at doing that in a way that's like not intimidating. And they make a very good point to be like, don't if you get tired, just stop. It's fine. You know, like, but I think it's pretty cool. Like it's way better than Wii Fit. Like it's miles ahead of Wii Fit.
That's the benchmark. A lot of people still play their Wii Fit.
Yeah. And I mean, this is great too. I think if you have a Switch and you're looking for like a game that doesn't involve you sitting on the couch, then this is definitely worth a try. And it's definitely cool having like the leg strap and the Pilates ring, the ring con is what they call it. It's just different. It's just really different. And so I'm really enjoying it, and I'm excited to play more of it. The game that came in that I haven't gotten a chance to play yet is that Mario 3D World 1. I brought it with me here. I just haven't had a lot of time. So
the All-Stars, Mario 3D All-Stars?
Yeah, Mario 3D All-Stars. And I really want to play that because I remember Sunshine being just so fun, and I really want to play Sunshine again. But I never played Galaxy.
Ooh, you are in for a treat. That one is very good. I love Galaxy.
I'm excited.
I'm sad they didn't put Galaxy 2 on there because that one's even better.
Well, the rumor mill is that's going to be its own thing, right?
Oh.
That's the rumor, is that's going to come out on its own. But we got some emails to read, though. Want to read some emails?
Yeah.
So we got one from our dear friend Xavier here asking if we will ever do Mario. And the answer to this is yes, we will do a bigger episode on Mario. And if you are looking for more Mario content, if you're like wondering, like looking at our backlog, like where's Mario? We covered a lot of the early Mario stuff in that the Ultimate History of Video Games book in the beginning. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure I made sure to put it in the description of every episode that we covered, where we covered like what games were covered. So they're there. So if you want a little Mario teaser, that's actually in the older episodes. But if you're wondering if we're going to do a series on Mario as a whole, of course we will. It's on our list for sure. We can only do one episode a week though. So, but yeah, that's the answer to your question. Thank you for the email though, Xavier. Appreciate it. You want to do Gerald's email?
Yeah. So Gerald, the subject of this email is Halt and Catch Fire. Gerald says, "Hey guys, great series. just found you a couple weeks ago, and I'm almost caught up. Just wondering if you ever got to see the AMC series Halt and Catch Fire. It's set back in the prehistoric days of computers. A couple of guys reverse engineer the IBM BIOS in order to make clones, like Compaq did. One of the team members goes on to start an online game BBS with text-based RPGs, etc. The nostalgia it brings back is awesome. And he has a link to the show here. Any plans on doing strategy games like Civilization? I probably dumped over 1,000 hours on that. Cheers, Gerald. Thanks for the email, Gerald. Halt and Catch Fire is awesome. I love it. I need to watch like the last half of the last season still, because I think it like wasn't on Netflix or something when I first started watching, but I love it. It's so fun. It's like this cool sort of pseudo history thing of like, there's like these two, there's several characters that sort of are kind of analogs for like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, and they go through several eras of computing history. So we've got like the early PC era in the 80s, and then kind of in the 90s, they're doing like BBSs, and then they kind of do some internet stuff later. And it's really fun, and there's some good, it's always some juicy interpersonal drama, of course. But I do love Halt and Catch Fire. Highly recommend it.
I've never seen it. I need to watch this. It's on Netflix?
Yeah, it's all on Netflix now. And it has Lee Pace, the guy who plays Ronan the Accuser in the Marvel movies.
Oh, and that's awesome.
Yeah, he's the like Steve Jobs kind of character, and he does
the
a really
Accuser.
good job. Yeah, Steve Jobs the Accuser. He does a really, really good job. Completely different from his role as Ned in Pushing Daisies.
I need to check that out. I didn't know that was on Netflix. I'd heard of this show, but I just assumed I didn't have it streaming on anything. But now that I know that, I will definitely look into it. And we're definitely doing Civilization. I love Civilization.
Me too. I've dumped a lot of hours into Civilization 4, 5,
favorite part about
6.
Civilization is you can dump in like 10 hours into a game and then lose, and you're still okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you play in like ultra marathon mode, you can play like 50, 60 hours on a single game, and it's like, it's just nuts.
It's crazy.
I love it.
We got a new review. I got to read this real quick. Sorry, everyone. I had to get my creaky chair here. It's weird doing this in a hotel, but I mean, we're making it work. So here we go. This is from J720 Backspin. Great name. Love these guys. 5 stars. I am in the old crew, 38, and grew up in the NES, Genesis, and N64 years. I recently got some of my original NES, N64, and Genesis games and consoles from my mom that I thought were lost forever. Good for you. My mom left those behind, and have been doing some flipping of games on eBay and offer up to make some side money and play some classics. And it's been super fun to rediscover games I used to own and rent all the time. Remember renting games? What a beautiful time to be alive. I have pretty much caught up on all your episodes over the last few months, and I thoroughly enjoy you gents and your earnest love of old games. Thank you. It's really awesome to learn more context around the games I love, gain new appreciation for all the work that went into them. So many times while working my way through your back episodes, I've wanted to chime in on games I remembered, but I figured I should wait until I caught up to current episodes. So here I am. A couple episode topics I'd love to hear, forgive me if you've done them before, would be Ninja Turtles games, from NES through the newer gens. Were there any good ones after Turtles in Time, Hyperstone Heist? That's a good question. That's a very good question. And also, you're like the 4th person to say that, which makes me put that at the top of the list. I think Ninja Turtles needs to be a priority. What do you think?
Okay. I'm in. I have almost zero experience with Ninja Turtles games, so
I have some experience of getting
you.
very angry and frustrated with them. So we should balance each other out really well, because I personally... Oh, the damn level. Okay, so Rocket Knight Adventure Sparkster, which is Genesis and SNES, amazing platformer. Have you heard of those? I've never heard of those. So we got to look those up. The Mega Man series. How have we not done Mega Man?
Yeah.
That's bananas to me. It says, have you done those in a question mark? And I'm like, you know what? How have we not done those?
Yeah, we haven't. Mega Man was one that I did not really grow up with. It just wasn't games that I ever played.
I think it beat me down because it was so hard. Those early Mega Mans, and as a child, I think it beat me down. But it's still great to look into. Thanks for all the hard work, and keep it up, guys. You guys bring the funny and the knowledge. Jordan in Texas. Thank you, Jordan. I don't want to start this old crew thing. You know, I feel bad. Although Old Man Ryan's really embraced Old Man Ryan. You know.
Yeah.
But I don't want to keep calling everybody old. You know, by their ages. I don't want to be an ageist podcast. But thank you for the email, the review, Jordan, and thank you so much for the email, Gerald and Xavier. And if you want to email us, you can email us at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us at @mecoletta or at sneakerelf, ELPH. If you want to join our Discord server, we have that the information and the invite to the Discord server is pinned to my Twitter profile. Otherwise, you can just email me and I will send you a link. Not a problem at all. We're trying to get some games going on there. I think we want to play Among Us, but the problem just getting the scheduling down is hard. Trying to get 10 people scheduled together is difficult, but we're working on it. So if you want to play games with us, we'd love to have you. And with that, that's everything, right, Tyler? You got anything else to say? Do you know?
I think that's it. Yeah, that covers it.
All right. Well, do you want to say goodbye to everyone? Everyone likes it when you say bye to them. I asked them if they want me to say bye. They're like, no, we want to hear Tyler's voice last.
Oh, okay. Goodbye, everyone.